So the last section of this unit focuses on how you write a function, how you write a quadratic function. We did this with linear functions, given a slope and a point, given 2 points, given slope and a y-intercept. We do the same thing with quadratic functions. So, Christian, when you had emailed me about that one question on, I don't know if it was the final exam study guide or the Unit 4 study guide, this is the section that I was referring to. So, we're going to look at how to build a quadratic function based off of information provided to us. So keep in mind, there are 3 different formulas for quadratics. So which one we use is based off of the information we are given. So we are going to use each of the 3. We'll go through the scenario in which each would be used. And we'll also do a application of that work. Let's kick things off with vertex form. So, vertex form is y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. So you use vertex form if you are given the vertex and you're given another point. So if I give you the vertex, that means I'm giving you h and k. So I'm giving you the h and the k. If I give you another point on the graph, then I'm providing you with x and y. So that means the only letter that's missing up there is a. But since I gave you everything else, you can easily solve for a. So let's do that with example number 1. Example 1, you are given a parabola. You're given a vertex of 1 comma negative 2, meaning your 1 represents h and negative 2 represents k. And you're given a point on the graph. So 3 represents x, 2 represents y. So one question that might come up, how do we know which one is the vertex? Remember from the very beginning, the vertex is the highest or lowest point on the graph. So whatever the highest or lowest point on the graph is, that constitutes the vertex. So we have what we need, so let's solve for what we know. So we plug in everything, so 2 equals a parentheses 3 minus 1 squared minus 2. So now we're just solving the equation. So we got to take care of the parentheses. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4. We have 4a minus 2 equal to 2. That's a relatively simple equation. Add 2, divide by 4. So a equals 1. Any questions before we continue? So the a value is important. We need that to write the function. So we're going to write our answer using only a, h, and k. Because we want our function to work for any point, not just the one that they provided to us. So there's the original function. Plug in what we found. Is 1 squared minus 2. So there's your final answer. Technically, since a is equal to 1, you do not have to write it. So you could give your answer like that, and that's perfectly fine. That's it. I'm going. Plug in what you have, solve for what you don't. And the key thing is when you write your answer, you only write your answer using a, h, and k. So, questions, example number 1. Oh, not seeing or hearing any? Then let's do part B. Let's move to the next one. Intercept form. So intercept form, y equals a, x minus p, x minus q. So intercept form, you have to know the x-intercepts, and you have to know another point. So the x-intercepts are p and q. The other point is your x and y. So that means we know p, q, x, and y. We don't know a, that's what we're going to solve for. Do pay attention to the fact that intercept form has 2 x's in it. That means you're going to use the x value twice. So just pay attention to what you're doing. So example 2, they didn't give us a graph for this one, but that's okay, we can solve it out anyway. X-intercepts are -2 and 5. So that means P is -2, Q is 5. Does it have to go in that order? No. You want to make P 5 and Q -2? Be my guest. It doesn't change how the answers will come out. Passes through 6, 2, so x is equal to 6, y is equal to 2. So we know everything except for a. So let's go ahead and do that work. 2 equals a parentheses 6 minus -2. 6 minus 5. So remember, x showed up in 2 different places. So you're going to use the x value twice. So remember that and be careful. But now we're just solving an equation. 6 minus -2, that's 8. 6 minus 5 is 1. 8 times 1 is 8. So 8a. Divide both sides by 8. Get 2 over 8, which is 1/4. Any areas of concern before we finish this one off? Alright, so we got A. We need it to write the function. So again, we write our answer using A, P, and Q. We don't use the X and Y value anymore after we get A. So there's our formula. Y equals 1/4 times X minus -2 and X minus 5. So I'm putting an arrow right there just to tell you leave that as the answer. That's wrong. Because you have something you can simplify. Two negatives can't stay next to each other. X plus 2. So intercept form is actually not that much different than vertex form. The formula is the only real thing that changed. Plug in what you know, solve for what you don't, write your answer using the indicated parts, which in this case would be A, P, and Q. Any questions, example 2? So we've done 2 of the quadratic forms now. The only one that's left is standard form. Let's go to standard form. So, standard form, that's your ax squared plus bx plus c. We use standard form if we are given 3 points on the graph. You can technically use it for more than 3 points on a graph, but if you're given just 3 random points, that's when you would use it. Now, truth be told, you have actually done this before. We did it last unit when we were solving systems of equations. Did it last unit when we were solving systems of equations. So, if you were given 3 points, we made a system of equations out of it. Plugged them in systematically, got our 3 equations. Once we got our 3 equations, we solved the system. Doing substitution, elimination, whatever your heart desired. Solved for A, B, and C. And then took A, B, and C and made the function. So truth be told, we did this one already. We did this in the last unit. But there's a simpler way to solve this problem out using the graphic calculator. So we are going to do this same problem, but with the graphing calculator. With the graphing calculator to work for. So go ahead and take a moment. If you need to pull your graphing calculator out, please make sure you do that. If you don't have your own graphing calculator, you were sent a link to put the graphing calculator onto your Chromebook through the Google Store. If you need that link again, that your mouth, when it opens for you to eat and talk, you can also use it to ask for me to resend it, and I will do that. It won't happen right this moment, but I will make sure to do it. But you can feel free to copy down the steps as we go along. When you take your tests next week, of course, when you take your quiz this weekend, your test next week, your final exam in a little less than 2 weeks, I cannot tell you the steps of how to use the calculator at that point. You are on your own for that. So if there's any steps, techniques that you need for the calculator, please make sure you write them down so that they're accessible to you, because I can't do it for you. Okay. All right. So we are going to use the graphic calculator to do this exact same problem. So, graphic calculator, there you go. First thing you're going to do is to press stat. And in the edit column, just go ahead and hit enter for edit. So your first two steps are stat and then edit. Now, as you can see, I have numbers sitting in the calculator. You might have numbers sitting in the calculator. So we need to clear the old numbers. Clear the old numbers. Very simple. Use your arrow key to go to the top of the column and hit clear. And then move back in. Do that for both columns. Do not press delete. You hit delete, you're going to delete the column. So do not press delete. You press clear. Now that we have our columns cleared, type in the new numbers. So the X's go in the L1 column, the Y's go in the L2 column. So the 3 points that we were working with were -1, -3, 0, 4, and 2, 6. So L1, type in the X values. L2, type in the Y values. Pause for a second. We have a couple people who are doing it along with us to catch up. If you have questions so far, please feel free to ask. Start up here in another few seconds here. Again, if you don't have your graphic calculator with you right now, the least you can do is copy down the steps. That way you can know how to do it later. 4. Yep, it was negative 4. Thank you very much. Back over there. There. Alright, so we got everything into the calculator. Now we're going to let the calculator do what it needs to do. So now we press stat. Now we're going to go over to where it says calculate. Use the arrow key, go to calculate, and you're going to press the 5th button down for quadratic. So, press stat, go to where it says calculate, and you're going to go to quadratic, which is the 5th button. Now, for those of you who have newer model calculators, you might get this information that you see on the screen. That doesn't mean anything. You don't have to change anything there. You're good. If you have the older model TI-83s, this probably won't even pop up. You should still be good to go. So you're going to go all the way down to where it says calculate. Press enter. Calculate or press enter. So once you do that, if you did it correctly, this is what you should see. You should see the formula. There's your standard form. There's your A, there's your B, there's your C. So those are the numbers that you would plug into the formula. Ax squared plus bx plus c is y equals 2x squared plus 1x minus 4. So again, you don't need to put the number 1 in front of the variable. So you can write it as 2x squared plus x minus 4. That's it, problem's over. So the most time-consuming part in this case is putting it in the calculator. Once it's in the calculator, press a few buttons, you get what you need. Now, there might be a couple of you over there thinking, well, first of all, I don't want to do all that. That looks like too much work, and I don't feel like doing it. Okay, that's cool. You don't want to do that? Solve the system then. Set it up as a system, solve it that way. Either way it goes, you're going to solve it. You're not leaving it blank. Either use the calculator to solve it, or set up a system and solve it. But you don't get to leave the problem blank. I wouldn't. It's like an 8-point problem. I would be taking an L.
So it's okay. We're going to start for like this, starting 5 we just put the answer.
So I'm about to show you what you would put for showing your work. So if you're using the graphing calculator, the only thing you're really going to end up showing is what was A, what was B, what was C, and then write the equation. That's really all that you need to show. Here's how I will find out whether or not you did it correctly. Once you do this, you're going to have another question sitting behind it saying, evaluate the function when x equals, pick any number you want, 5, whatever number is listed there. I'm going to find out whether or not you got the right function. I'm going to tell you to evaluate. So, x is equal to 5. That means you're going to take 5 and plug it back into that function. So that's what, 5 squared, 25 times 2, 50, 55, 51. So this is how I'll know that you got the right answer. You're going to take another number, plug it into the function that you got, and tell me what you get back. So for those of you who are using the calculator to solve this out, here's what constitutes showing your work. That's what constitutes showing your work. So with that being said, questions, comments, concerns, complaints before we take a short break before doing part B. All right, not hearing any from our studio audience, so I'm going to pause, do part B. So we're going to do an application of making a quadratic function. So this one involves fuel efficiency of an automobile. So fuel efficiency, miles per gallon for all U.S. vehicles in an indicated year. Write a quadratic function that fits the data. Find the fuel efficiency for the year Mr. Lowe was born, 1984. So, yes, compared to you all, Mr. Lowe is old. That's okay. I'm proud of every single one of the 36 years I've been on this earth. So, we have our table. X represents the number of years after 1940. That means x equals 0 represents 1940. X equals 10, 1950. X equals 20 would represent 1960. And so on down the list. Y values, miles per gallon. So in 1940, an automobile only got 15 miles per gallon. That sucks. Then again, in 1940, gas was 50, 60 cents too. So take it for what it's worth. So what we did with part C is exactly what we're going to do for this problem. So here's our table. That's what we're going to put into the calculator. So let's go ahead and do that. So I want to get rid of all the stuff that's there. Get rid of all of this as well. Alright, so same rules apply. Go to Stat, go to Edit. So now we got to get rid of the data that's here. So clear it out. And we're going to type in the data that we had. So for those lovely folks, here's the data that was there. Rewrite it over because I'm a nice person. .9, 13.4, 13.5, 15.9, those are a table from our notes page. We've got to type in all numbers. X values go in the L1 column. Give it the once over, make sure you put everything in correctly. The Y values go in the L2 column. 13.9, 13.4, 13.5, 15.9, 20.2, 22.0. Again, give it the once over, make sure everything is put in there. Let's give a few seconds for those folks who are finishing up putting in the calculator before we move on and let this calculator do its thing. Alright, so let's keep it moving. Now we're going to have the calculator spit out what we need for the function. Go to stat, go to calculate, go down to Quadratic. Again, the information here doesn't need to be messed with. We can go right down to calculate. And there's your values. So yes, you're going to get some wild, icky decimals. Be like that sometimes. So for the A value, you get a 0.0050. We'll go to 3 decimal places. So Y equals 0.005. Now, if you're going to go 3 decimal places for the first number, then you need to be consistent and do it for the other 2. So for the B values, that's 0.169, but you got a 6 sitting back there. So that's 0.170. Rounding still counts. Still need to round correctly. If you need a refresher on rounding, come holler at me after school. I'll do a refresher of how to round numbers. Because if you misround it, it's going to give you the wrong answer. So C, you have 14.816. You got a 6 sitting back there. 14.817. There's your equation. Any questions before we continue? Alright, so let's copy that over there. So from calculator. Now for that problem, if you don't have a calculator, good luck with that. So if you don't have a calculator, you would have to pick 3 of those as points, and then solve it using the system. Like I said, have fun with that. You can do it, it's just going to deal with a whole bunch of nasty decimals. So, there's our function. First part of this problem is done. Now for the other part. Find the fuel efficiency for the year Mr. Lowe was born, 1984. So go back to our table. Each of these numbers represent the number of years after 1940. So 1984 would correspond to what X value? I can't plug in 1984.
44 because there's subtracting 1940 from 1940.
Amen. So X equals 44. Take the year you want to look at minus 1940. Why 1940? That's the year that they used as a starting point. So, fuel efficiency in 1984. So X is equal to 44. All you're doing then is just evaluating an expression. So, plug in 44. Once you show the setup, then it is my full expectation that you are taking that and putting it directly into the calculator. Of course, hey, if you want to work that out part by part, be my guest. That's 17.017. So 17.0 miles per gallon. So if you're wondering why did I go to the nearest tenth, because all of the numbers in the table that was given to me went to the nearest tenth. I'm just being consistent. That's it. Problem's over. Again, the hardest part to the problem was just getting everything put in the calculator. Once you get everything in the calculator, working it out is pretty simple. Any questions? Example 4. Alright, I'm hearing any, not seeing any, so we must be good to go. Alright, so one last thing before I shut this recording off and preview the happenings with the quiz. So, should you need additional examples of any of the ones that we've done? So example 5 is another example of using vertex form. Example 6 is another example using intercept form. And example 7 is another example using 3 points, both by solving the system and using the graphic calculator. So these are ones that were already worked out. You can try them yourself, make sure that you're on the right track, so on and so forth. But those are additional examples in case you need to see another example.